Easy ye, how are we?
Shawnee, we're back.
We're back, and at least it's not the two of us this week. We're delayed today for this week's episode of the podcast, but we've good reason to be delayed. This was supposed to be the Art O'Neill review, whether the waterproof socks worked, whether I got lost in the mountains or not. But man, let me tell you, so the Art O'Neill, most people know, listen, but if you don't know, it got cancelled with the snow. They're telling people not to go up the mountains, so they could hardly send 200 of us up in the mountains. And I don't know if you saw the Instagram stories we reposted this week. I can't remember who posted it, but someone did the trail and they literally took 1 foot into the snow and they dropped like 3-4 feet. And I'm like, if I was like, I got lost up there in the rain, let alone 3-4 feet of snow, not knowing which way to go, I wouldn't have got out of the mountains. I hadn't a hoop at getting out of the mountains up there. So I, for one, was delighted it went ahead. I was even more, it didn't go ahead. I was even more delighted it didn't go ahead when I did the Donadea Half Marathon. I'm an idiot. I think we've established I'm an idiot. I'm someone who tries to do it all. So I got an email last September being
No,
like, oh,
hold on a minute.
okay.
People have been actively giving out to me for giving you abuse.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
Seán,
just because it's true doesn't mean you have to say it out loud.
You can't talk about yourself like that. You offend people, all right? If anyone's going to offend anyone, you idiot, it's me.
So I didn't mention last week in the podcast that I was doing a Donadea Half Marathon this weekend for the simple reason I didn't know I was doing a Donadea Half Marathon this past weekend. When I signed up back September, for some reason I thought it was later in the month, and only when I got to Monday, Tuesday, I looked at it, I was like, oh God, that's this weekend. And at the time I was supposed to do art, and I'm like, I think I could do both. Let me tell you, man, when I was doing the loops around the half, and it's just because my body wasn't right. I don't know what's wrong at the moment. I don't feel great. It was a great event. The Sunday was actually warm. Like, I woke up and it was like -1 degree, and I was like, right, I'll put the base layer, fucking bottoms on, the base layer top. By 2K into doing that lap on Sunday, I was like, I'm too warm. It was 10-12 degrees out there. It was beautiful weather. The loops was perfect for it. The only thing that wasn't perfect was my body and the condition I was in. I was like in a heap doing it. Like, it was just, it was a great tune up for the 50K and pretty much, I need to get my shit together for the 50K. You would have loved it because the medal. The Donadea Half Marathon medal at the end of it. Big, thick medal, spinny thing on it that works. I'm like, Eric Lawless would appreciate this.
There's two things I love is a t-shirt and a medal. And in fairness, and any of the races they do, be it the 50K, the half, the marathon that they do, Donadea is a great place. It's ran so well. It's getting busier, which is a great thing to see. There's a lot more people doing it, which means you've a lot more company on the trail, on the run around, which is fantastic. But again, it's one of those races. I'm so jealous I'm not there. The Dubai Marathon was on here the last day, and I was a little bit jealous. I wasn't in it, or even doing the half. I debated throwing into the half. I was like, oh, will I, won't I? Yeah. But I was like, no, we'll leave it. We'll keep focused on Barcelona.
Barcelona.
But Donadea is one of those in the calendar that I'm like, I'm really jealous I'm not there. It's a great event and ran by great people, and the crack at it tends to be really good as well. And some fantastic athletes. It has it all. It's phenomenal.
Well, Wayne Waldron won the marathon over the weekend, and he won the favourites to win the 50K. But I'm having this thing where I'm telling people what I'm doing this year. So I've got the 50K coming up next month, and then Barcelona afterwards. And I have this trying to do it all thing. It's a real character flaw I have trying to do it all. And when it got announced that the Art O'Neill was going to be rescheduled for April, May, I knew straight away what date it was going to be. And I told Neve what date it was going to be. I'd be like, look, wouldn't it be funny if around this date I ended up like doing the Art O'Neill and coming back? And she was laughing along, and then she stopped me dead serious. She goes, Seán, absolutely not. You cannot do this. So we got this was during the week when I was like April, May, and I was like, it's going to be May 9th. And we got the email today saying it is going to be May 9th. And bear in mind, I haven't emailed them yet to the fair. And the problem with it being May 9th, and well, I think it'd be a great story, but the problem on Neve's end and her family's end and my family's end to be May 9th is that on May 8th, I'm supposed to be getting married. And May 10th is supposed to be the celebration. But I do have that little time on May. I'm not really doing anything in the evening of May 9th, and sure I'll be back May 10th, and I might need a little sleep for that afternoon and even before that. But I think it could be done, but she's assured me it absolutely cannot be done. So the decision is
No,
probably
Seán,
made on that.
if you were clever, you'd do the wedding on May 10th. So that way, getting lost and not showing up and just walking away from the relationship, that's a real possibility. You could have given yourself one final out.
Will he make it there in time?
Where's Seán? He's somewhere in the Wicklow Mountains and we never saw him again. That could have been it.
What a way to go out. What a way to go out.
It's absolutely brilliant. But look, you can't do it all. It's going to be interesting to see the Art O'Neill in the summer. Obviously, more, hopefully, weather a little bit better.
More daylight, a lot more daylight.
Evenings, brighter daylight and brighter nights as well. With less cloud cover, you're probably more likely to see things if it's not a cloudy night as well. So, but look, fair play to the organisers. A lot of people, there is a lot of pressure to make a decision.
Yeah.
When people have paid money. A lot of people have probably made reservations. And I think it is the most important decision is to make the safest one. And I take hats off to them. A date can change.
Yep.
But when you send people up into a dangerous situation, the outcome of that might never change forever.
Yeah.
So I think fair play to the organisers. I think it's a very brave thing when people spend, especially in a lottery system, people are waiting for this for a long time. There is a lot of pressure on making and what I think is a good decision. Defer it a year, defer it till May, April, May, at the end of the day, it was a good decision and I respect the organisers and their I appreciate what they've done and reorganising. It's no easy feat to even reorganise. Benefit, you got to go to Donadea as well, so it worked out well in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to make it a good decision down the line of where I'm going to do the fair or not. Obviously, I'll do the fair to January. Even when I said I'm not too sure at the fair to January, but that is a conversation for further down the line. We didn't want to do an episode today. I think we said at the very start. I didn't want to do an episode today of just the two of us talking when we hadn't got the Art O'Neill to review. So I was at work all day. I'm literally just back, laptop open now, and it's like nearly 3 o'clock as recording this intro. You, on the other hand, were very busy this afternoon in a different way, making sure we had a good episode of the podcast today. So I actually don't know what's going on here. I haven't had time to even look at the recording yet. What do we have this week?
Well, this week is a great episode. As always, we have to say that it's our podcast. But this week we have Rachael Smyth back on the podcast. For those who don't know, Rachael was part of our podcast for a series, getting on some great athletes. She's been on the podcast before. She is an amazing athlete and has an amazing attitude to sport. You weren't there, which made it so much more fun. But no, I did. It was weird not having the intro and then who do I abuse? So I think I still abused you anyway, even in your absence. But it's a phenomenal episode. In this episode, you're going to get what it means to be consistent. You're going to get what it means to dedicate a lifestyle to trying to achieve something. And it's the episode is long enough and there's a lot discussed in it. I'm way off with some of the times I say and some things, but Rachel's not very good at putting me back in my place and correcting it, but it's good. That's fact checking. That's good. But it's it's a phenomenal episode. It's triathlon based and it's really, really good for those who are setting goals for the year, because those who have already failed their New Year's resolution, don't worry, it's only week 2. There's still another 50 weeks to go. And this episode is about dedication. It's about when motivation isn't there and what can be achieved in such a short space of time.
And with that said, it's this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Let's go. Hope you didn't mess up the intro, pal.
Easy.
It's weird when Seán isn't here, isn't it?
It kind of is. I just can't pull it off the same, unfortunately.
I actually, I didn't know. I was like, right, usually we have this, Seán does the intro, I slag Seán, people feel sorry for Seán, they send us money, and then we get on with the episode. But this week, with you being in Australia, Rachael, and me being in Dubai, we couldn't get a time to suit all three of us. So me being halfway across the world meant I had to take charge of the interview. It's a bit weird. Although you've done podcast episodes with us before, so it's actually nice because we can kind of bounce off each other. But when you're doing a one-on-one, it's great when you have two people, because two people think of questions, two people have different ideas. But it is weird without them, and probably going to be better. I'm just going to put it out there. Just going to put it out there.
Famous last words.
So on this week's episode, we do have Rachael Smyth. Rachael, you are very welcome back to the podcast because you have had a very, let's say, busy 3 years, because since 2021, you started to get into triathlon, but it's been a very busy 6 months for you in the last six.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like forever since I've been last on, but yeah, the last 12 months in particular, but yeah, last 3 years, it's kind of hard to think back. And when you have that vision for yourself, your 3 year or your 5 year plan, yeah, I'm not sure if I kind of thought I'd be here. Interestingly enough, back a few years ago, I said not by my 30th birthday, but in the year I turned 30, I wanted to have completed a 70.3. I turned 31 just before Christmas. And yeah, I ticked off that goal, ticked off the full Ironman. That was a 35-year goal. So I think I'm a bit ahead of schedule.
Yeah, just a little bit ahead of schedule. And in that build up, we've gone from not cycling with cleats to second in the world in the age category in the Ironman World Championships in New Zealand. How I know how because I see the amount of training and consistency. For those who listen, how do you go from just getting onto a bike, not knowing how to really cycle it, to second in the age categories World Championships? That is phenomenal in just 3 years.
That is, yeah. Yes,
There's a lot of people.
it,
Seán's jaw, if he was here, would be on the floor because he still can't believe when I was sending him the details of your race. I was a little bit ahead, and he was like, "Oh my god!" And looking at your splits, it was amazing. Like, let's start at the finish. How did it feel? Did you know crossing the line where you were in the race? Was it that close?
Oh, like it was close that I got second by 20 seconds.
Wow.
So let's start there. I'm not even sure. I can probably look back at the splits, but like in that last kind of maybe quarter of the race, so the sort of final 5K, there could have been as much as 90 seconds. Like I was in third and back by 90 seconds. And I think going over the second last timing mat, I was still in third place. It wasn't until the finish, like crossed the line, and the first person I saw, I was like, "Can you check? Like, where was it?" So yeah, it really it came down to the wire, as they say. Unfortunately, first was just a bit too far away, but yeah, managed to sneak up to second. So at 19.8. So for those of you I suppose who don't know, it is a half marathon at the end, so 21 Ks. At 19.8 Ks, I was 5 seconds behind. By
God.
20.9, I had managed to get 20 seconds in front. And then I held that to the finish line. So yeah, so I'll
Like,
just
it
go
is
back.
obviously running is definitely the strong part. And when we saw you in Lahti in Finland, obviously you'd put in a great effort in the swim. You'd put in a great effort. It was your first showing at a World Championships. Good bike effort for what you felt at the time was excellent. And we watched you come off the bike, I think maybe in 50th place, maybe 40th place, thereabouts. And when it came to the running, your consistency tends to be pretty bang on. And we were watching you claw back the places all the way back up to, I think it was 10th. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it top 10 finish?
No, it was 19th, top
19th,
20.
sorry, top 20 finish. We watched you
Yeah,
claw back.
so
And then from that, you were disappointed. And when we spoke last, it was like, how can you be disappointed? You went from never doing triathlon to 20th in your age category in the world stage. Like, that's phenomenal. And you were like, no, next year I can do this. I can do. You were already thinking of the plans and how you were going to do it. But that run, for most, maybe I'm right and wrong in saying this, for most of it, the plan is swim better, cycle better, and as long as you're within touch for the run, we're going to be in a good place. How did you work on that from that Lahti, Finland, all the way to this latest World Championships? What did you put in place to say, okay, this is what I need to do, and this is how much faster I have to go, and this is what I'm going to do?
I think last year was a massive learning curve because we went in, obviously with expectations. And I think I fell short in everything. And it definitely, part of it was probably preparation because we had traveled to Ireland. I'd got engaged beforehand. There was just other things, first time being home since then. There was just a lot of other things on my mind that kind of distracted me. So first time home since getting engaged, but also first time home since moving to Australia. And I guess for anyone that has, like, there's so many Irish people who've been in my position over in Australia who've gone home. It is a big deal to go home for the first time. So I think I just wasn't in a really good headspace. That race had been in August. I hadn't raced since end of April. So I'd had that massive gap of no triathlons, a few running races, a few TTs, but not an actual triathlon to get me firing up. So there's just a lot of things, mainly around that kind of mental aspect that I really think played a bit in Lati. Because like I actually ended up having a really good run. It was one of my best ever runs off the bike. But I was very disappointed with the bike. For the power I pushed, I knew I was kind of better than that. I had an awful swim. So there was just a lot that kind of didn't go wrong. Like, to say it went wrong is not, it wouldn't be true. It didn't fall into place the way I'd kind of experienced in, like, at this point, bear in mind, I'd only done 170.3 before. So at that point, it was like, okay.
That is the bit that's hard to bear in mind. It's only one before, and we're talking about the fine art.
So obviously then go forward to Lati was in the August. You have to flash forward to November, 12 months before you get to New Zealand. And in that time, I did a few more 70.3s, another 100K. I even did the full distance. So my experience and just exposure as an athlete increased. It just got so much better. And that really stood to me in New Zealand. It's like, okay, I've been here. I know what to expect. I have put the work in. I have another year and a half since Finland almost behind me. And I think I've been lucky, and I suppose you can call it luck or you can call it good preparation, but everything has gone well. I've had an uninterrupted year aside from scheduled breaks. Just have an amazing team around me. Coaching is obviously so important, making sure it fits around my life, and then a good sort of care team like physio, recovery, that side of things I'm pretty on top of. So that made a big difference.
So last year, a lot of our guests came on and they said there's a real importance to race practice. Obviously, that had only been your second 70.3, the first out. You've talked about many more 70.3s. You also retained your title for Busselton straight after Lati because you were going to wait till the next year to kind of see if you could get qualification, but you just went in December and said, okay, let's go again. And you won the race for the second time. I think you beat your time by about 9.5 minutes on the year previous.
No, it was actually, I think it was a bit more than that. I think it was 19.
19 minutes? Oh my God.
Yeah, because my very first one was about a 4:45, give or take. And then the next year round was 4:25. So almost 20 minutes.
My God. And obviously, did that, I suppose, add to the disappointing of Lati that you can churn out a performance like that? Obviously, when you get back to Australia, you get back training, you get into routine, because we're talking at a difference of 3 months between the two kind of schedules. Did that fuel the year ahead? Obviously, it did, but did it add more kind of bitterness to the Lati experience, or is it all just chalked down to experience? Because a lot of our previous guests says, race importance is good, but this was then your third race, and obviously with such a stark difference.
Winter training? You need Ultra Pure Laboratories Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream. Recommended by physios, trusted by athletes, and tried and tested by ourselves, this is an essential warming muscle rub for cold winter days. Ultra Pure Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream is perfect for warming up muscles before exercise. and ideal for soothing tired muscles, which, let's face it, marathon training, we could definitely do with that.
If you're concerned about the ingredients, it contains wintergreen oil, rosemary camphor oil, juniper berry oil, and antioxidant-rich caffeine powder. Seán has no idea what any of these means, but he knows that they work.
It keeps me warm too. Apply Ultra Pure Laboratories Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream liberally on problem areas such as the legs, arms, back, neck, and shoulders, and massage as well. Boy, rinse hands well with cool water after use. I have made that mistake. It is not fun.
Guaranteed Irish and made in County Mayo, Ultra Pure Wintergreen Heat Rub Cream is available in pharmacies and health stores nationwide. Shop the Ultra Pure Muscle Recovery range in-store or online and find out more at ultrapurelabs.ie. By listening to this advert, you are supporting Irish podcasts and Irish businesses. Let's get back to the podcast.
I think it probably did. Oh, I don't know if it added to the disappointment or if it was more comforting to be like, yes, I knew that performance was in there. Like it was kind of, I suppose, very encouraging in a way because it's like, oh, okay, that was a bad day. I'm not a bad athlete. That was a bad day. And, I think I've been very fortunate not to have very many of those. So to just experience it and just be like, okay, look, the training is there. The effort has been put in. It's just, we need to execute better. And that is one of the big things I learned. And I did make other changes. Like I think I wasn't happy on my bike. So I think after Finland, I changed bikes. I actually got the exact same bike, but a slightly older model because there was just some very slight differences and it just suited so much better.
It's really unusual because your bike, like, beautiful. It was the tri-suit, the bike, the shoes, the helmet, everything was matching. Looking the part was not the problem. And then I was really surprised when you were like, I'm actually changing my bike. I've bought this older one. And I'm like, what? You're getting rid of the glorious one that if a scratch got on it, there'd be tears. It was beautiful. And all of a sudden it was get rid of that bike. I want one with scratches. I want one that's been worn, tried, tested. So bike fittings are a big thing. So people who are listening to this, obviously it's great to have an athlete on and we'll continue talking about the race experience. People who are getting into triathlon and cycling, how important is the bike fitting? And in your experience, what difference did it make with this new bike? What was different?
Being comfortable on it. I just found like, even though it was the same like company, it was the same model, just slightly newer, there were slight changes with the frame, just sizing, and it just felt very big underneath me. So you've got to feel comfortable on it. And like, you can pay people to do bike fits or, a lot of the time you can feel yourself if you're like overextending your knees or if you're not in a good enough aero position. Like there are a lot of changes you can make just from looking, like just have someone record you or have someone else there to like critique. But yeah, like if you're not comfortable, you're in for a long day and you're in for a long, painful day if you don't have a good fit on your bike.
And what did this bike, obviously we've gone now 19 minutes quicker, the cycle times. Did you continue to use that bike throughout the year as we went into, obviously we did Busselton to retain the title. And then also we went doing some shorter stuff.
Yeah, I guess didn't really go that much shorter. Went down to the 100K and then 6 weeks later ramped it up to the full distance. But no, the bike that I changed to after Finland is the bike that I raced Worlds on just there a few weeks back. So it was a really good fit. I guess you're always looking for changes. You're always looking for ways to improve. So, watch this space. I'm never against changing it. But, it's been working for me for the last year. So I've been happy on it.
And what does, obviously, to choose to go do the full Ironman, we can go into the full Ironman in Cairns as well. What was the logic behind going the full distance? Was it for mileage? Was it a mileage block? What was the training logic behind that? And then we can talk about the race because you had a good day that day as well.
I think, I suppose what was the logic behind it? I guess when you qualify so early, so Busselton in 2023 was the qualifier for New Zealand 2024. And because New Zealand World was so late, like not till the 14th of December, I had like 365 days plus an extra 2 weeks. So the whole motivation behind doing the full was just to like change it up a bit, just so I didn't get bored. That was really one of the main reasons for going full. It's like, all right, are we just going to do the same thing? Is this year going to look the same as last year? Because when you're trying to get up every morning, train twice a day, work full time, you do need that spark, that's something that keeps you going. And in this case, it was like, let's do it. Like, I've got a year. So what is a full halfway through? If it's a disaster, I still have 6 months to recover and rebuild. And yeah, like as you said, it wasn't a disaster. It was actually a really, really good day out. But it was just that, just change it up. I hadn't done it. I was in great shape. I knew I wouldn't have to do that much extra training to make the distance. And yeah, we went for it.
And up until that point, you'd never ran a marathon, had you?
No, that was my one and only.
So you'd never ran a marathon. You were bored and said, sure, I'm doing halves. I might as well go and do a full. Did it scare you a little, even being so accomplished, like in such a short stage, being so accomplished? Did it scare you going up to the full? Did you, haven't done it? We'll talk about the race again. Haven't done it. Would you do it again? Is it something that it excites you more than the halves, or what is the difference? Like, obviously for me, I've done a full. I know people do halves. Obviously the difference is distance, but when you have two different distances, you race quite differently. Did you find you liked it? Would you find subtle differences between the two? Which one would you prefer?
I loved it. I think it's such
Yeah.
a random, I don't know if it's a random thing to say. People are probably listening going, what the hell? I loved it. I can't even begin to describe it. Like, I'm sure there was times in that bike ride where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? Who thinks this is a good idea? And then you cross the finish line, you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. Let's plan the next one. So I like, it's just, I don't know. It's a combination of things that, yeah, just really excited me, the whole idea of stepping up. And in the lead up to it, I guess it's like anyone who's training for just a marathon. It's always the question of, okay, well, how far do you go before you do the marathon? Like, do you actually need to do the marathon distance before you do the full marathon? In my case, no, I think my longest run was maybe 31 Ks, about maybe 3 weeks out. But then you've got a 180-kilometer cycle. So not only are you thinking with a marathon, like 42K, suddenly 42Ks is not seeming far compared to 180. And I got nowhere near that. A few weeks out, I did a 160K time trial. And I honestly, after completing that, or I say completing it lightly, like getting through that, I really thought, I'm not sure about this. Like, I could really, really struggle. And just the funny thing, I'm just very much like, when I get on the start line and that like gun sounds or whatever it is, the beep, I just flick a switch and I'm just in race mode. And when I look back and think about that 180-kilometer cycle, it did not feel like 180 kilometers. I think that's the incredible thing about racing. When you just get started and get going, you're just in the moment. You're not thinking about, or at least I try not to think about how far I've done or how much I've left to go. I just try and think about what I'm doing at that point in time. So yeah, I think I just treated it the same way people treat just a regular marathon and got through it.
And for those who don't know, what was your time on that day for your first ever marathon plus first ever full distance Ironman?
So for the marathon, I went 3 hours, 12 minutes. And for the full thing, I went 9 hours, 40 minutes.
9 hours, so sub 10 hour on your first ever marathon, first ever full distance Ironman. Like, phenomenal. And I think you topped an age category or were in the top three.
I won age group overall.
Yeah. I think you were the
13th
first age
overall,
grouper overall,
including the
wasn't it?
scouts. Yeah, first age group overall. And that was Asia Pacific Championship.
So that's a pretty big race. Would that draw you more to the full distance? The fact that
Oh,
you've had such a good showing in the Asia Pacific Championships, would you be, is it tempting to go full distance or would you happily stay at both?
I think I'd happily stay at both. But if you look at the race plan for next year, I have 5 fulls penciled in. Now, I don't plan on racing all 5 of them,
Five of them.
but like, I'm thinking like it's going to be a full distance year for me next year. And
Okay.
maybe 1 or 2 shorter distances, but like, I just feel like there's, I've done a few 70.3s now, a few half distances. Quite happy at that distance. I've gone pretty quick, but I just feel like with the Ironman, I just feel like I haven't like tapped into the potential. I just feel like there were so many areas where I was like, oh, I could have done that differently, and I should have done that differently, and what if I'd done this? So there's so many unanswered questions that I guess I just can't drop. I need to explore these.
And with that in that year, like obviously for me, we had 2 very different days out. There was 3 hours in the difference. You were probably on the flight home by the time I was still crossing the finish line in when we compared the 2 races. Obviously you'd race 70.3. At this point, you're 2.5, 3 years into the sport, taking on a full distance, never done a marathon. You said you race in the moment. Were there parts of you that was afraid of, am I pushing too hard? Because a lot of the questions people ask themselves on big races, be it marathon, be it Ironman, is what am I pushing too hard? Am I going to have energy at the end? Was the aim of this just to go and see? Was the aim of it to push to the limits, and if it fails, it fails, or was it to keep some in reserve?
I think that the main goal was just to finish. Kind of didn't want to set too many expectations because it's a long day, and like you just need to watch any race just to see how easy something can go wrong. And sure enough, straight out of T1, I grabbed my bike, went over a really nasty speed bump, my salt tablets and my one of my gels gone off the bike. So I
No.
actually did stop and I ran and got the gel, but I didn't see the salt tablet. So
Oh
when it's a
no.
really hot and humid climate, like Cairns is, there's rainforests nearby. It is very hot and humid. To drop my salt tablets was a bit like of a concern. And I really feel like in that second part of the bike, maybe about the 130 to the 150, probably a bit longer, I was very, very reserved. The power that I ended up averaging was much lower than what we'd sort of trained for, what we thought I could do. But I think I made the right choices on the day. Again, I was still going into the marathon, even though I'm trying not to think about it on the cycle. You still have that in the back of your mind. I've never done this before. I have no salt tablets. What if I cramp? And then, yeah, just hopping off to do a marathon where it's like, I've only done 31 Ks. Like, you do, I suppose, not doubt yourself, but you do certainly get questions going through your mind. And I guess part of the challenge is just how well can you block that out? How well can you answer the negativity and push through?
How good was it crossing that finish line? Because obviously, this one did scare you a little bit. It did. Like there was more thought into, am I going to survive this day? At the output you were going to put out, like it wasn't like I just showed up and was like, look, we'll see what happens. If we get there, we get there. Everyone just have a beer and a pizza. I'll see you next, maybe tomorrow, but I'll get there. With you, obviously, there was a competitive side to it, and managing that output. How good did it feel crossing that line? Obviously, you said there's more there, but that one did scare you. How good did that feeling? Obviously, top in the age group, 13th, 14th, 13 pros just finished ahead of you. How good did that feel?
It was honestly incredible. And I think the run course in Cairns is really nice. It's a 4-lap course, and quite a lot of it goes sort of around the marina and sort of around that finish line. But yeah, turning onto that, and I had Brandon there, I had friends there. It was really special. I think there is a video. Someone grabbed a really nice video of me running down, and I think you can just see the smile. Like you can see that meant a lot. Uh, and yeah, obviously getting to that point, being like, okay, I've done this. I did know on the last lap that I was in the lead. So I was able to enjoy that finishing straight a lot.
And does it help in the mental side of it? Like, obviously, people who do marathons, we very clearly know we're not in the lead. So it's just you v you. But when it's you v others, the competitive edge does push, the whole iron sharpens iron. When you know you're in the lead, do you get that extra little burst just the same as if you're chasing down? Because sometimes a negative, like we're going to talk about in the World Championships, being 5 seconds behind if you're already max effort could mentally break you. But when you find out you're in the lead, did it just feel like you floated the last lap of that marathon, I suppose, and to cross the finish line? Did it feel good?
Looking to recover faster,
Yep.
train harder,
Yep.
and perform better?
And then what?
Perform Nutrition is one of Ireland's leading sports nutrition brands with a number of great tasting protein powders, a range of vitamins, as well as other supplements such as creatine. All products are made in the GMP facility in the west of Ireland, and they have a range of batch tested and informed sports certified products. Perform is trusted by a number of Olympians, High Rocks champions such as Seán Noble, he was in the podcast.
Yeah, right, he was.
Also CrossFit Games athletes such as Emma McQuaid and many more. Perform's goal is to offer the highest quality, best tasting nutrition products for competitive prices. And now you can get an extra 25% off all products with the code AGR on their website, performnutrition.com.
25%. I'm typing it in now. And don't forget, we are supporting Irish companies. You are supporting this podcast by listening to this advert. So support Irish, get behind your podcast and get behind your local businesses. And until then, let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, it did. And I think, obviously the run is my strong point. And, obviously I recognize that 3:12 was a really good effort to run. But I hit the wall, I think, at 16K. Like, I hadn't even hit the half marathon, and I laid down on the ground and cracked my back because I was like, I'm just stiff. I don't know how I'm going to I don't even know how I'm going to make halfway. But once I hit halfway, if you ask me if I did a marathon, I have to think about it because it did not feel like what I imagine a marathon would feel like in terms of that just dragging on and on and on. It didn't. It dragged 16 to 21 Ks. Man, I thought I'd never get through that 5K. And then once I hit halfway, it's like, I'm home. So then that last lap, I did know at that point that I was in the lead. So I guess it kind of depends, like, because the day had been sort of to survive, I probably didn't push it as much as if I had been chasing someone down right to the end. But then I still think I still gave my best effort. I really don't think on that day I could have done much quicker than 3:12.
And we came off that, obviously, to have such a positive experience over the distance. It had to have given you, I suppose this is not comparing me and you, but the mentality of it. People ask me, would you not do a half Ironman first? And I was like, but I'll do a half doing a full. So I get value for money doing it all in the one day. It's one flight, it's one this, it's one that. But for me to look at a half now, it's like, yeah, I could do that. Like an Ironman, I still have to kind of go, oof, I don't know. I have to think about this. I'll have to train about this. But having done that full and then looking at a half, you're kind of like, 5 hours, 5.5. Yeah, come on. Like it's not the worst. I could definitely take that on. In your level, did that do anything to you when you looked then at a high output half, or is it still like I'd look at a 5K max effort? It's still horrible because it's maximum output for a shorter space of time. Or how did you feel from going from full back into the half and back into preparation for the World Championships?
I think training probably didn't change too much, which was probably an easy adjustment. Obviously, we still kept the long endurance runs because I really feel like that just built incredible strength. And as a result, believe it or not, because I'd done like speed work throughout the marathon build, my 5K time, I ran some of my quickest 5Ks in like pre-track days. I've ran
what was your 5K time? Don't just say 5K time. Make me feel bad, Rachel. Make me feel bad. And Seán, more importantly, when he listens back.
Oh, I know. We must check in with Seán and see how his he's tracking. So back when I was a track athlete, and did some road racing, I ran 16:35. So I have managed to get back down to 17:30 this year, and that is since the full distance. So that strength I built up and just making sure I did those kind of speed endurance sessions and those strength endurance sessions has just meant that, yeah, I've regained that speed. So from that point of view, it was kind of easy to come back down to the half distance. But then obviously you're having the distance, but you're trying to get faster. But I think once you like, it's same with everybody. No matter what you're doing, as you keep getting better and better, it doesn't get easier, you're just getting faster. And I think that's true whether it's a full or a half, it's still going to hurt. It's just maybe when you're doing the half distance, you just start hurting earlier because you're going faster sooner. I don't even know if I'm making
I
sense
had
there.
this no, I had this awkward conversation with someone the other day, and they were getting into running, and it's like we're talking. This is what I love about this podcast. We're talking about you performing at the highest, and then I was talking to someone who wanted to get into running, and we went and we did a little walk run. It was like, when does it get easier? And I said, it never gets, it never gets
No.
easier. You just get faster. And if you're inconsistent, it's never faster, never easy. So it is so true that the consistency, it just makes you run faster. But would you say, Rachel, you get comfortable with the uncomfortable feeling? You get a little bit more comfortable with the pain when it's you're doing it consistently. Yes, you're getting faster, but you race more. You just get a little bit more comfortable with that feeling and realize actually I have 20% more. My body is just giving out to me now, but I can go further. Does that come with experience? And again, back to this question, did that feeling of endurance, I know I can do this over long distance, did that help you unlock a little bit more potential in I actually can go with a little bit more power? I can run a little bit faster. Did you find that you were willing to, because again, and a big asterisk, we're only doing this 3 years, did it help knowing you could cover that distance? Because I know when we talked before, it was, maybe I won't push this hard because I need to still get off and put in a 4-minute K when I get off the bike. Was there a little bit more of you opened or unlocked a new door to go, do you know what? I can push the extra watts because I've done it over longer distance. Did the getting faster, but also that mind game help you a little bit to have confidence in the power outputs, in the runs, in the swims?
Yeah, it did. Because obviously, if you can do a certain pace for, however long, like real endurance, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours running and up to 4 or 5 hours cycling. Well, then if you're only doing like less than that, because if you're going faster, it's a shorter distance or it's a shorter time anyway. So I really think that you can tap into something else. Like you can tap into that, like, okay, I don't have to go as far, so I can push this a bit more. And I guess it's a classic thing. Like one of my coaches back when I was running always described like endurance sport as brutal because it doesn't matter what you do, how fast you go. You can always say, could I have gone faster? Or can I go faster? And I think that's something that, like, no matter how competitive or not you are, that is something you always ask yourself. So I think subconsciously you do tap into that a lot, especially when you're going longer and you go down. It's like, okay, like I'm now focusing on, say, quicker stuff. So how quick can I be? Instead of like, how long can I go? Can I do this distance? When you move down, it's like, can I go faster? So it's still the same drive. It's just you're shifting from that, like the length to the pace that you are doing it at. But yeah, I would say that it is a lot of mind games. And that's something that I think people getting into the sport just kind of learn to, they don't realize at the time that it is a lot of just you versus your mind. Like that whole thing, like when your body starts screaming at you, it's like, well, am I actually done yet? No, it's only started screaming at me. So I'm going to push through. And then I'm going to keep pushing through. And I think, yeah, that's just something that I did not have that when I was running. I did not have that mental toughness to be like, I can go that extra bit. Like I'm not done yet. And whether that's something that I gain from Ironman training, because like it is brutal, you know, maybe I have to give myself a lot of credit for building that mental strength through that really tough training. But it's definitely helping me with the shorter stuff. Just knowing that, okay, I've done way worse than this. So push, push, push.
And it's amazing the output you get. You came off that. I don't think you really took a rest from this. And we're looking now at the building to the World Championships. You pretty much, I remember seeing a screen grab you sent me from your Strava, and the peak never really dropped. It just keeps climbing. I don't think you took much time off, did you?
I took 2 weeks of absolutely nothing. And then, you know, for someone who is not a strong swimmer, that's always sort of a gamble to stay out of the pool for that long. But I did take pretty much 2 weeks of nothing. And then I did 2 weeks of just what did I feel like? When did I feel like doing it? So I did schedule in a month of downtime. And I think that's because I did talk about earlier, you know, having this whole year of just consistent, uninterrupted training with the scheduled breaks. I think that's so important. Like, I actually recovered really well out of the Ironman. Like, I walked out of that tent, I walked to dinner that night. You know, I recovered pretty quickly. So there is that temptation to jump straight back into it. But it's like, you've just put your body through almost 10 hours. Like, if I did not give myself the chance to like switch off, and even just from a mental point of view, like you are in the zone for 10 hours. Your mind, even if your body is thinking it's fine, mentally I needed that break. So yeah, it was a month of, I'm not going to say chill, but of downtime.
Is it hard? Obviously, you've built routine, and we say a lot of times routine is probably the best thing for your fitness goals. If you can build in the routine, because motivation, like I've no doubt after that 2 weeks break, your motivation probably wasn't the highest. You're probably like, you're like, don't get me wrong, you're excited to get back to training. That when you train so often, you operate, you do look forward to training again. You do miss it. But sometimes when people do long races, marathons, I'm guilty of it sometimes myself. When I cross that finish line, I'm like, right, that's me until 16 weeks before the next one. You know, because motivation leaves and the routine was there, but then the seasons have changed, the wind changed direction. I find food, like it's just everything goes out the window then. How was it for you? Obviously, we had World Championships looming, so there's a very big motivational factor. But how do you find the transitioning from racing, recovery, and then being motivated to go back in, or is it routine? What way do you work, and what advice do you have for people who are coming out of? Because even our Barcelona trip, for an example, which yourself and Brandon are involved in, what some people come out of Dublin, had to take some time off, and then trying to get that train going again it's difficult. So what way did you manage it?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Brandon is the coach for the Barcelona trip, and you know, he's been my coach from day one. So I've had that consistency with my coaching as well. But for me, it's completely routine. Like, I mean, I'm highly motivated, I am highly driven, but I don't rely on that. For me, I've just built good habits. I just know that I'm getting up every morning, like, yeah, like my schedule is just, it's a bit crazy. Like, I'm up by 4:30 every morning, usually at the door by like 5:15, do the first session of the day. Usually I go straight to work. I don't think I ever come home. I think it's always straight to work. Work my full day, come home, got my nice routine, just either have a coffee or a quick snack, and then it's out the door for session 2. And then come home, cook dinner, bed, repeat. And like for some people, it's like, oh, like I understand that it's not for everyone, but for me, this is my choice. You know, like I said, I'm highly driven. I want to be as good as I can be. I just want to be the best version of myself. And I've chosen to dedicate myself to that. But even if you're not doing like my routine, you can still have certain days where it's just like, no, this is time for me. And even if it's the day that you're not training, you're still taking that time for you. And I think that's so important that you just know, okay, when I get to Tuesday morning, I'm meeting my friend at the gym, or I'm going for a walk, or it's time you have set aside. And I think that trumps motivation any day of the week.
Yeah, it does. And look, accountability is something we've spoken about a lot. And the fact that you live with your coach is a very big accountability because you get 2 feet into the back. So, but it's
I'm the one who has to drag him out the door. Let's be real. But I have a very good group of friends that I train with. So like I swim 3 mornings a week, and I know that there's always going to be some of them training. And that helps as well. So the accountability and the routine is so much better than the motivation.
And would you say that, and again, we are reminding people we'll get into the World Championships we're building, but for people who are interested in new year, new me, I'm trying to say like new year, what can we do consistently? You know, like it's not a new you, it's still you, but what habits can you build? Do you find that clubs, triathlon clubs, groups, is that the key? Is that what's going to keep you? Because obviously you feel like you let people down. For me, I think it is because you feel like you let people down. You have a social engagement, even though you're training, you have a social life. And that's, I think people don't understand that about people who commit themselves to sport or who say, right, I'm not drinking because I'm training. When they go out with people who are drinking and not training, they're like, you've no life. It's like, well, actually, I've got great friends in the pool. Do you find that those kind of groups make this easier to aim and to set them goals for yourself to be the best you can be in the sport?
100%. Like we call ourselves the breakfast club because we reckon the only reason we swim is for the breakfast afterwards.
Food is my motivator as well, so I can't judge.
Like we've got the t-shirts and everything, you know, we're fully committed to like the breakfast club. But that makes such a difference because it's like by the time I rock up to work in the morning, I've spent a morning with my friends. We've had a laugh. We try and reserve breakfast just for Fridays so we don't go completely bankrupt. But it's just that we have so much fun before most people are even out of bed. And that makes such a big difference, knowing that, that there's people there who are going to make you laugh, who are going to brighten your day. So then no matter what else happens, you've had that positive experience.
And if you just stick on the autopilot, put the gear on, you're tired or not, just get there, you will warm up to it. And that's the beauty of a group and that motivation and that accountability. Like the hardest bit, and it always is, it doesn't matter if you're doing a 9.5 hour Ironman or a 4:30 70.3, or you're doing what I'm doing, 13. The bit that makes it hard is putting on the shoes. It's getting out of that bed. It's just taking that first step, and whatever you need to do. What kind of aids do you do, or have you got a little mental trick when you wake up in a day where you're like, oh no, what is the bit that gets you to go, just get up?
Oh, I think it's just habit. But like if you saw me now compared to 2 years ago, like 2 years ago, I would be lying in bed until the very last minute, to the point where I'm running out the door late by the time I actually get training done and then get back and get ready. Like I would be running out the door late to work because I had pushed off starting my day until the very last possible minute. And then it's just kind of like it just goes back to mindset. I love what I'm doing. So I want to get up. I want to be out there getting better, improving myself. So now I try not to snooze the alarm. Like I try to give myself as much time as possible, but then knowing that, okay, when the alarm goes off, I'm up, I'm ready to go. Doesn't always happen. Like this morning I was not in the mood to get up. But I still did because I had arranged to meet friends at 5:30 in the pool. So I was not showing up.
Yeah, and you do have to do it, and it does make a big difference to help with that consistency, to help with, I suppose, freeing up your day, particularly when you look at Ironman. And one of the main issues I had with Ironman, And I've had those moments. I stayed in bed and said, nah, I'll train at lunch and I'll train in the evening. Then lunch comes and I'm too busy. And now I'm like, damn it, I have missed a session because I wanted 20 minutes of extra sleep, and it adds pressure. It really, really does add pressure in the mind because you've missed a session. Now you're only getting one session in, and you just build this. Had I just gotten up, I've never regret training in the morning. Not once. It's one thing I can turn around and say I have no regrets. It was when I got up early to go for that run. I have never regretted it. I've never regretted an early morning swim, an early morning hike. I've been angry getting out of bed, but at the end of that training session, I've never been like, I really shouldn't have done that. That was a bad idea, because I feel great for the rest of the day. Yes, okay, you do get the snoozies a little bit early, hence you go to bed early, but it is a lifestyle. And I think that's one thing that you've committed to over the 3 years is this is a lifestyle.
Absolutely. And like I said, I dedicate a lot of time to it. But I've also just accepted that when I'm in a big block of training, I'm going to be tired. Whereas back, like even a year ago or 2 years ago, I hadn't quite accepted that. I was kind of always a bit down about the fact that I was so tired. So getting out of bed in the morning, it's like, oh, I'm just so tired. What am I doing? And then when you kind of accept that like, okay, this is training. This is what I train for. When I freshen up, like when I taper into a race, I'm not going to feel this way. And then like in the weekends, I just prioritize a bit more recovery. Like, yeah, there's some weekends where, I don't get that recovery because I've arranged to do something with friends or, done something that's not training, because that is really important as well. So there are those weekends where, yeah, I'm maybe not catching up on rest and I might feel that a bit more during the week. But it's been like, I am putting my body through hell multiple times a day and multiple times a week. So of course I'm going to be tired. That is normal. So it's just embrace the suck, as they say. Just embrace it, accept it, and just move on. At least that's me being harsh on myself. That's what I need to say to myself, to just get on with it, get over it. Everyone is tired. Everyone is dealing with their own shit. You're not more tired than anyone else. So quit the complaining and get your ass in gear. Oh, I lie. I also find preparing the night before is actually key to being
as well as being tough on yourself. But if you leave your gear ready, yeah.
If I actually curse myself the nights I go to bed and don't leave my stuff ready. Future me curses.
And it's amazing, like what you can do in 2.5 minutes before you go to bed will take you 15 minutes the next day. It's like, where is it? You're half sleepy. Whereas if everything's just ready, it's just roll and go and wake up as you go. So we've kicked ourselves out of bed many, many times. We've raced, which you said was really, really important. And it's something that was said, and it seems to be a point that comes up, and we mention it once again, that racing experience and once you're race fit is really important. And we were racing into this World Championship. You had a couple of good outings. We had Busselton once again. You had another good day out.
I did. So I made the decision this year to race a half distance 2 weeks prior to the World Champs. And then I think 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks prior to that, I had gone and done a full out half marathon race. And the week directly before Busselton, I had done a 40K time trial flat out. So I actually made a decision to really push myself in the weeks leading up to it, which, like I said, for Lati, I hadn't done. I hadn't raced. That race was August. I hadn't raced since May, or like start of May, end of April. So this was a completely different approach. And like speaking to so many people here, because there was a lot of people from Western Australia who qualified for New Zealand. It was really amazing to see. And then I think I might have been one of the only ones who actually did both races, because obviously Busselton is our home race here in Western Australia. And a lot of people kept saying to me like, oh, like, do you not think this is going to impact your World Champs? Do you not think it'll be a negative thing? Will you actually recover on time? What are you doing? And it was just the right choice for me. It was also a pro series race. So up until this point, the full Ironman had always been the one that attracted the pros. But now with the Ironman Pro Series and with Worlds 2 weeks away, they put on a Pro Series for the 70.3. So the pros all came over for the 70.3. And like, that was added motivation. Like, imagine a race on your doorstep where some top people are going to be there, and I'm skipping that race. Like, like I know I was in the amateur race versus like the age group race versus the pro race, but they're still there. They're still doing that race. And what do you mean I'm not going to do it? Like, no, like I want to be in that race. Like I want to be there. I want to be part of that because that's opportunities that might not come around again. So definitely like lots of different reasons for doing it, but I also know my body. And I knew that I could go flat out in Busselton and recover. And that's trusting the process. If you look at so it was actually 13 days. And if you look at my training in those 13 days, I hardly did anything. What I did do was I did intensity. So I still made sure I got out on the bike and I pushed power. I still made sure I went out on runs and, increased my pace a good bit. But in terms of volume, there was very, very little.
Like the fitness was there. It was just a case of staying sharp. And I have to say, there's a lot of people that they need the taper. They need short, soft, and they fire. For me, it comes back to the mental game as well. I feel like I'm not fit if I haven't done something big, and then mentally I'm like, yes, we're ready. Let's just stay injury free for 2 weeks, keep the engine running and ticking over, and then mentally I'm like, okay, I'm ready. You sound like that's kind of your style as well, is to kind of test the body close enough, be ready, mentally ready, do what is considered good recovery. Let's be honest, if you're recovering between, like we're talking about amateur because you are an amateur athlete now, but like any professional athlete who's racing, they're racing circuits. They don't necessarily have the luxury of a lot of time, depending on what races they're going to do. They could be doing triathlons back to back. So it's a reality of being an athlete and treating yourself like an athlete. And by doing it correctly, you set yourself up mentally to go, I'm ready. I've raced into it. And it's something you said since the last year was, I want to race into this, and definitely stuck by it.
Yeah, and like I think it's muscle memory as well. Like when I did my first 70.3, I couldn't walk for 3 days. Like my quads were shot. Like up and down stairs, couldn't do it. I was living on the first floor in like an apartment without a lift. Like I was shot for 3 days. But then I walked out of the tent after the Ironman with very little muscle soreness. And then after Busselton, it was like, okay, I actually feel fine. I might do an easy spin like the next day or whatever. I actually don't think I did. I think I took a rest day. But, I felt like I could have. So I think, just years of consistency lead you to the point where I've trained my body to recover. And then I do trust the process. Like a lot of people couldn't do that because they mentally couldn't stop for 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks leading into a world championship and you're suddenly stopping training. Like, are you crazy?
Yeah, no.
Like,
I
no,
couldn't do it.
you just have to. Like, I knew I needed the recovery. So what we did, like from that mental point of view, was we picked one key swim, one key run, one key bike session. And we planned when in the 2 weeks we were going to hit those. And that's what we did. And then it's like the work is done. You don't lose fitness in 2 weeks. It takes, if you leave it any longer than 2 weeks, you'll start losing fitness. You do not lose fitness in 2 weeks.
And when you're adding in key sessions obviously being tough sessions, they're the fitness builders, for want of a better word. They're not the endurance builders. They're the sharpened end of it. They're the hard sessions. You're definitely not going to lose fitness.
Well, like, I think you'll laugh because I know I've definitely talked on this podcast about it. Like, my favorite run workout of all times is the Mana Fartlek. And I know I've had Seán out doing a few Manas. That was the run workout that I think we picked because will I gain anything from it? Yeah, I'll gain confidence because that's my favorite run workout. I know that I can do that. and I'm just going to go out and do it and feel good. And that's what I did. And that just gave me confidence that, yeah, the run fitness is there.
And if that fartlek didn't give you confidence, winning the Busselton for the third year would have definitely, that was the bit we didn't mention. We kind of left that there till the end. That you actually won it overall again in the age category, racing with pros in the same race. And you had a very good showing once again for the third time in a row, 3 years in a row. Are you a local legend?
Yeah.
Do you get the little thing on Strava now, say local legend on this track, or what way does it work?
Oh, I hope so. I actually haven't checked that one out. I go down there and I train down there every so often. Yeah, so obviously got the
Are
overall.
you signing babies and stuff around now, Busselton? Are you a local hero?
Oh, I joke that the mayor and I like recognize each other now. Yeah, because obviously the Busselton 100 is down there as well. So, another amazing event that's held down in Busselton.
You won that again this year, did you?
Yes. So then it'll be coming back up this year, May the 4th this year.
But look, your modesty, as always, is amazing. And it's great to get an insight. And we haven't even topped with the main event, which was the World Championship. So we've recovered. We've had our key sessions. You're taking the short hop, well, actually from Perth, the long hop to New Zealand. And you're getting settled in for the race. How was the atmosphere this time? What was different about the World Championships this time? And tell us everything we need to know about this race.
It was unbelievable. And listening back to different people talk about it, different podcasts about it, everyone is just saying what an amazing championship it was. And it was in Taupo, so it was North Island in New Zealand, about the middle of North Island, this glacial lake, a really small town that they reckon the population of the town is about 20,000 people. They reckon the world champs brought in 25,000 people.
Oh my
They
God. Where were
reckon
you all sleeping?
That talk to my mother. My mother got us great accommodation. Highly recommend her for all your travel inquiries. Because there was not a lot. They reckon 1 in 10 people, like residents in the town, volunteered. Like they
Wow.
just embraced the event, like walking around the town, like it was a beautiful town, so picturesque. You can see some photos on my Instagram. It was just absolutely sensational, but the town welcomed it. So walking around the town, everyone had like little flags, like the accommodation we were staying at had a Christmas tree with all Ironman decorations on it. The local swimming pool had a shirt that every athlete who came got to sign. They had all their like different countries' flags up. I was actually laughing. You'd know you were in like the all black country because they didn't seem to have like a tricolor anywhere, but they had the IRL flags. It was the rugby flags everywhere. But it was just the way the town embraced it, just made it so magical.
And then obviously the build up, you got out for a spin. Lake swimming different, obviously, to Perth. You've got your sea swims. I know you travelled a little bit to get a practice in a couple of lake swims, but did that scare you? Was it a nice setting? How was the setup overall of the race?
Yeah, lake swim can be a bit daunting for everyone because fresh water. So obviously you're less buoyant, but then the fact that it was a glacial lake meant it was wetsuit. And that always helps, especially if you're a slightly weaker swimmer like me. But the prep was good. They had practice swims with the boys at the lake is so safe that you can, it is a swimming lake. Not like Lati, where you actually couldn't swim in that outside of the training times that Ironman posted. But this, people swim in it all the time. The roads, they even released dedicated cycle training routes because some of the roads around it are quite busy. And just for safety, they were like, look, don't use this part of the course. Like, obviously you can drive it, but for cycling, here's the recommended routes. And, they released all that in advance. And then you've got the run path, which just went beside the lake. So really, they did think of everything for athletes in the build-up. And then, I suppose we might as well go on and talk about race day itself. Like, the weather gods were smiling down on us because, men and women have separate days. So women were on the Saturday, men were on the Sunday, and the weather just got better. And to the point, like, it was only maybe 25, 26 degrees, but I don't know if anyone has been to New Zealand. It's a hot 25, 26 degrees, like kind of like home. When it gets into that,
Yeah,
like,
when it gets to 25 in Ireland, it's a different kind of 25.
it's a different kind of 25 to say 25 here, where 20 degrees, you're reaching for a jacket here. It's quite pathetic. But it was real intense heat. But yeah, look, race morning, just really calm conditions. Apparently, according to the commentators, there was a bit of a current, and everyone said it was a bit choppy. I had the swim of my life. I think I broke my Ironman swim PB by like 4 minutes, or my 70.3 PB by 4 minutes in that swim. I did not feel a bit of that current. I did not feel a bit of that chop. I was like so motivated, so in the zone, just got a good line. I think I just loved it. Like, it was crystal clear. Not much wildlife, but you could see everything. Like, I don't think I've swam in water that clear before.
Almost like the swimming pool effect, because you can see the bottom. You had more comfort.
So I just had like an amazing swim, which if you'd done seen my practice swims the 2 days before, like, we knew I'd put the work in, but based off the practice swims, I think Brandon was probably getting a bit worried. And then, like, he was waiting for the run. It was about a 400-meter run from swim exit to transition, and you had to go up a really steep hill. And he was waiting up there, and he shouted like 30 minutes at me. And in my head, I was like, yeah, right, like, whatever. I didn't actually believe him, because I kind of knew if I'd had a really bad swim, he would have told me. But I kind of felt like I'd had a decent swim, and he was telling me it was better than what it was, so that I'd be extra motivated on the bike. But no, I actually did come out of the water in 30 minutes, which I was just blown away by.
And look, that whether you believed him or not, that confidence getting onto the bike, because I know you didn't know when we saw you in Latin, you didn't know. We knew it was a little bit longer than the 30 minutes and not what you had hoped for. But in this case, when it goes well, it has to give you confidence going into that cycle.
Oh, 100%. Just like running to the bike and him shouting 30 minutes and just knowing what he's like. He wouldn't have said that if I'd had a shit swim. Like, maybe he might have exaggerated a bit. It turns out
he would have thrown tomatoes and apples at you if you had a shit swim. Let's call it spade to spade.
Exactly.
Or maybe a few rocks.
But I knew that the start of the bike, like the first 20 Ks, were the real, like, tough part. That's where you had a lot of the steep climbs, just a lot of the drags. So I knew, like, game plan was always just to go out hard. And because it's a rolling start, in Lati, I made the mistake of starting in the first row. So then anyone in my age group who came past me was ahead of me.
Yes.
Whereas this time I actually started further back in my age group. I maybe didn't start until maybe the 7th or 8th row. So there was like quite a number of girls in my age group who were ahead of me. But on the road, there were so many age groups that went ahead of us, and like, I don't know what way they plan the age groups. I think they plan it that a lot of people maybe finish around a similar time. But I was passing people all day on the road. But at the very start, the one and only person to pass me on the bike came past me, and she was flying. And I made the decision to go. Like, obviously within like the draft zone, like, she was still about the 20 meters ahead of me or more at some points. But I made the decision that, okay, I'm going to push harder, and I'm just going to see how long I can keep her in my sights. And I actually think that was a risk you took. But she was the only person that passed me, and she passed me within the first sort of 10 minutes on the bike. She was actually the girl who finished 5 seconds behind me in my age category.
Oh,
But
Beautiful.
really strong cyclist because, other than that, I didn't really see anyone my pace. Whereas in Lati, it's amazing the difference like a few kilometers per hour can make. So in Lati, I think I averaged 35, 36 kilometers an hour, which I just got stuck with packs. There was so many people cycling that speed. You couldn't get away from them. This time, I think I averaged maybe 37, 38. And that difference, being able to push just slightly quicker, meant that I was passing people all day and I wasn't stuck in traffic.
And
So I was
not
able to
at
get,
risk of a penalty because of a drafting and that can get
yes.
messy. Then you start thinking about it, changes your race, all of that. So had that girl not passed you out, would you have pushed? Was it that competitiveness that just said, let's go for it. We're racing. Let's just, this is the World Championships. I'm not letting her out of my sight.
Yeah, I think it was that competitiveness being like, oh no, like you're not going to pass me on the bike. Like, no chance. Like, I'm not. My bike is really strong. It's still, it can be stronger. It's probably not, it's not as strong as what my run is compared to the field, but I feel like it's up there.
Yeah.
So when someone goes past me, it's like, no, I'm taking my bets that even if I can't stay with them or keep them inside for the full thing, if someone's able to go that speed, I'm gonna hedge my bets and try and hold that speed too. So I think it kind of just gave me that motivation to push. Because like I said, that first 20 Ks of the course was where a significant amount of the elevation gain was made. So you do have that tendency to maybe go a bit more reserved.
Yeah. Go easy.
And I didn't. Now, let's talk about the last 30 Ks of the bike. Upwind, roughest roads I've ever cycled on in my life. Like headwind, uphill. The roads were so rough that I bruised where my arm was on the bars.
Oh
Because my arm
no.
rests against my drink. My whole forearm bruised.
Just rattling, just like bouncing all the
From the
time.
rattling on the roads. I've
Oh
never
my God.
experienced anything like it. So I probably suffered the last 30 Ks because of that first 20. And, that's probably where, like, not that I lost the race, but like, if you want to talk about losing the race, that was the section I lost it in.
Is in that 4 minutes to the person who won. It was that section, you reckon?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And what could you do different?
Like, I suppose it's easy to say be tougher, be stronger, but like,
Well, could you
really
chalk it
don't
down to
know.
experience? Could you chalk it down to I've never had this rough road experience. I'm spoiled in Perth in Western Australia with great facilities, and now it's like, look, but it's the same for everyone. And others were just like, I'm gonna keep pushing. I'm gonna keep eating the bounce out of it here and just going for it. Like is it something you could look back at and go, if I was to do it differently, I'd do that? Or is it just a case of let's chalk it down to experience and I've been there before and I'll be there again?
Oh, I think like normally I upload my race immediately, and I didn't load that up onto Strava for about a week, 10 days, because I didn't care. It's like I could have changed a million things, but I finished second in the world. I don't need to analyze it. I don't need to nitpick it to see what I could have done to have won. I actually just wanted to appreciate the effort. Probably, since then I probably have looked back and thought about things that could have done differently. But instead of doing that, it's more like I just want to get better on the bike. It's just
Yeah.
kind of given me that, like, when it's tough, push harder, because that's what I need to do. That's what I needed to do on the day. I really don't think I could have done it on the day. Like, even looking back, even knowing how close I was, like 3-4 minutes, I think if I'd known that at the time, I still don't know if I could have pushed more.
Yeah, it was what it was, and at that stage, the race is kind of playing out, and it's all going to come down to what happens off the bike at that stage. Because once you're in and you're pushing, there's not much you can do at that stage. You're not going to create a new engine. You're not going to, you're not going to change things on the bike. It just is what it is at that point. Bar pushing a little bit more, which may compromise a run and strategy and everything. And you'd already been pushing, so yeah, I think it's rare that an athlete will go, actually, let's just enjoy the moment. Let's just say I worked hard and be okay with that. So you've kept them in sight. You're coming into transition. They're 90 seconds ahead, maybe when you're getting off the bike. Are they a little bit? That lady was a little bit ahead. How were you coming into transition and how was it getting out on that run?
Oh, we had luxury. We had bike catchers.
What?
So because it was 2 different days and because the men were using the racks that the women were, they actually used bike catchers. So you didn't have to put your bike back to where you started. The bike catchers took it and put it into a holding area so that the men could come in and rack their bikes. So very, very well organized. So it was a real speedy transition. Just kind of got the shoes on very quickly, got out the door, just started going for it. But when I came out of transition, everyone around me was screaming. Like they were like full blown, like I'm in the middle of something big here. And next thing, one of the TV cameras goes past me and I was like, okay, there's someone significant coming up like beside me. And sure enough, eventual second place in the pros, Kath Matthews, was coming past. So the exit to transition was 1.2 Ks from the finish line. So
She was finishing the
eventual
day.
second place, Kath Matthews, was coming past transition exit as I came out on her last lap. And the crowd were just going nuts for her. So that was
Did you try and keep up with her? Did you try and
like,
say, I'm going to sit on her tail?
now, because I'm one of the people that looks at the camera and gives out about the people that do that, especially when it's, if let's say if it's mixed sort of male and female as well, you get a lot of that, of like the pro women always having people sitting on them. And I'm always the one shouting at the TV, get off, like, what are you doing? Let them have their moment. So I was not going to be that person.
Was pace wise, because obviously I've had pros come past me on my day on the full. I was, I think, just finished and they were finishing the race and I was still 80k into the cycle. What is it like when someone of that level passes you? Did you look at it and go, I could hold that pace? I know you didn't keep with it, but were you looking at the pro going, this is attainable, that's not far off me, or wow, that's a different level?
Oh, she had a different level run on that day. There are times where it's like, yeah, okay, I probably could hold that. And then obviously, in the last 1.2K, she was probably at her max speed all day. But she actually had a run for the ages that day. Nobody was saying, aside from, no, she ran time into the winner. No one was keeping with Kat Matthews that day.
And so your run that day, what pace were you holding? Or what was the plan? Obviously, you were hunting, so the plan may have changed. But what was the strategy?
The plan was maybe to go at about 4-minute pace. And like, I know from training that, on my day, I probably could hold a 350 or like somewhere between that 350, 4 minutes. But the plan was kind of to go at 4 minutes. I don't know what the course profile said, but that was a hilly run. Like it was brutal. And then the heat. And it was so hot. And like they managed to find a hill that nearly broke me. It was a 2-lap run course. And normally I run very evenly. Like if you look at my Strava segment from, let's say, Busselton 100 last year, it's like slowest and fastest kilometers, aside from like the very last one, they're all within 5 seconds of each other. Like there's no real variation there. This one was a complete wave. You can see where I was on the downhill section versus the uphill sections.
I think it slowed. I don't. I'm going to say a time, but I could be wrong. I look at that many Stravas in a day, but I think your time went from like a 3:30 down the hill to like 5:56 minute nearly up the hill at some points, or a little bit.
No,
I could be way off with the upper, but your downhill definitely was very clear on the Strava. It was like, yeah, okay, you can very clearly see there was a downhill section here because it comes straight after a very, by your standards, it looks like Did Rachael blow up, or what happened here?
I think when you're looking at the tracker as well, the timing mats might say that they're at a certain distance. So then when you get to that pace, depending on the time you got there at, it does the calculation for speed. But quite often the mats aren't exact. So like it could tell you that you're running 3:40s 1 minute and the next minute you could be at 5:20s. And it's just because the timing mat is out.
And that's what we were looking at, because when you're following you on the course, it's like, Rachael, it's all gone.
So no, it wasn't quite that bad. So it was a 4:05 kilometer average. I had my fastest run ever off the bike. Did 1 hour 26 minutes. So I was very, very happy with that.
Marathon.
Yes.
My God.
But I think, yeah, on the slowest pace, definitely dropped to a 4:19. That was my slowest kilometer.
Yeah, so 4:19. So the Strava, obviously, because when you do watch that race and you do look at your profile, it was from a 3:30 up to nearly a 6 minute. Like the scale of it was huge, but obviously
So like
in reality,
earlier on in the race, I had like a 3:51, at 3:59, and then like 4:15, 4:19 for the two kind of bumps in the
rolling
road.
hills, yeah.
Yeah, then a 4:11, and then it drops back down to like that 4 minutes.
So as you were moving around, you're dealing with the hills. When did you see your cycling nemesis? When were you, or were you still in sight with them the whole time? Was it just inch by inch, every kilometer, just taking a little bit, or how did it work in terms of that competitive edge on the run?
They had actually, and like obviously you don't know this until afterwards, but they had actually started ahead of me. And I think they had started I think they could have started 2 or 3 minutes ahead of me.
Okay, so row 1 and versus row 7 with the
Exactly.
the 15-second intervals. Yeah.
So whilst she was in sight at sections on the road, she still finished ahead of me.
Okay.
And that's the
get it.
wacky thing, like.
But could you see her on the run? Could you see, were you still trying to hunt down, or were you just hunting time?
Because of some of the switchbacks, like where you just did your 180 turn, I had her in sight, but yeah, it's just you can't. It's like really hard. So because she was close enough to me that I could kind of see her on the road, I was able to push. But then at the same time, you just rely on people shouting splits at you as well. Not my mother though. Like I'll give her credit for the accommodation. Don't give her credit for her timing.
Take it with a pinch of salt and keep going.
False information coming in.
And so coming through, obviously you come through the first lap, you're out onto the second lap, you're up and down the hills. You know the course at this stage, which I actually like about the lapped races, because you learn and then you're like, okay, we've one more lap. I know where I can push. We'll see what we can do. You're getting the splits as you're coming through the last 5K. You know you're 90 seconds off. What's going through your head?
Yeah, so coming through, I got the time split that I was 90 seconds. And I guess that's where we hit the worst hill on course. And first time out. So when you do the turn at the far end, there was a bit of an incline, and then you have a bit of a descent because you came out along the river or along the lake, but you went back on the road. So it wasn't actually consistent where the hill was out and back. So I'm going down, and the first time I got to this hill, I was like, I just was not expecting it. But the second time, like we had done a lot of hill reps in training. So the second time, I knew that everyone would be hurting on that hill. And I knew that it was brutal, it was hot, but I knew how many times I'd done hill reps in training. I had done like countless 2-minute hill reps. So I put my head down, which, a lot of people see as a sign of defeat. But I actually just stared maybe a meter in front of me. And I got up the hill that way. I didn't look how close to the top I was. I didn't look at anyone around me. I put the head down and I just said, just get up this feckin' thing. And that was, I think that timing split there and I don't really know. it's really hard when you look back because you don't actually know
No, the
what
exact
those
kilometer or
timing
where it
mats
was.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think for like Brandon watching it, he would say that between the two timing mats before and after that hill, that's where I put the damage into her.
Yeah, and like you're talking about, if you were maintaining pace consistently as you normally would, or maybe even a little bit quicker than your consistent pace, with her slowing down, you're talking about 30, 40 seconds, over this course of that 2 minutes, if they slow down enough, if they're hurting, if they're slowing, and you keep maintaining pace, it's big. It's really big on a hill section to maintain the pace you're maintaining on a flat. There's a lot of a lot of time to be made up there.
Exactly. So like my last 5K in that run, so from about where the hill was to the finish line, that 5K, I did sub 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I was probably maybe not quite 19 and a half, but probably about 1940 for that final 10K. So that is quite significant to be able to still push that kind of sub 4 minute average for that section, knowing that there's probably not that many people who are running that fast.
And
So
obviously,
just about
if you don't know, you're only 90 seconds behind. You're probably just gonna, if you know you're a minute in or 2 minutes, 3 or 4 from the first, and the others are a few minutes behind you, you're not putting in that sub 20. Am I right in saying it's the sheer fact that you were within touching distance? It was, I'm gonna give this everything.
Absolutely. My last K was a 3:46. I was just,
3:46.
and
Oh
that
my
was
God.
the last I'd say the last 400 or 500 meters was slightly uphill. I just went for it.
But
I was buckling.
so to turn it around from 90 seconds behind to 20 seconds ahead, you're looking at the guts of nearly 2 minutes over 5K, which is phenomenal. When you talk about 2 minutes over a half marathon, not a lot, but 2 minutes over 5K is a phenomenal final run and a phenomenal final effort. Did you know you had second place crossing the line?
No, I did not. I knew it was close, but obviously finish line is very congested, so I hadn't got a time split from Brandon from maybe 2 or 3Ks out. So the
Wow.
last I heard was that, I was gaining, but that 90 seconds was the last kind of split that I had, aside from just roars to go.
So crossing the finish line, you get the results. We know now that you are second in the world in your age category, which is, and again, 3 years in the sport, an absolutely phenomenal achievement. I'm acutely aware this podcast, we could sit and listen to the debrief, the medal ceremony, the flight home, the Christmas. We could listen to it all. I suppose to wrap it up, how does it feel to be on a podium as second in the world is the first question. And the second question to bring it home is, what's next? Because with you, Rachel, there's always something else coming.
Oh, if you'd asked me before this, I'd say just let me get to Worlds, then I might be done. No, look, it was honestly incredible because going in, I probably had less expectation, less pressure on myself than Finland. Because I'm in a very competitive age group, like anything from sort of that 24 up to 34, that is highly competitive. That's where people are deciding, what they want from the sport. Some people are maybe working part-time or maybe not working at all, really dedicating themselves even more than I do to the sport. So you have to recognize you're competing against people, that I wouldn't normally race against. I don't know their background, I don't know their training, how long they've been in it. So to actually be like, man, like I was competitive. I've done this. I'm on this podium. Like it was just, it was really hard to describe straight afterwards. I think I was a bit like, yeah, like not in disbelief because I'd obviously believed in myself. I obviously had put the work in, but satisfaction, I think. Just like we've done this, like the team I've built around me, we've achieved something really remarkable. And like you said, in a short space of time. And yeah, we were just really, really proud of the effort. And then I did finish 7th overall, so I did get top 10, which again, I don't even know if you dream about this because sometimes it just seems so out of reach. But yeah, I mean, just phenomenal. Like, I really do step back and just be like, I'm so proud of the effort, just how everything came together, and just actually finally getting to that point was really, really sweet. In terms of what's next, like I said, if you'd asked me a few months ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to get to Worlds and then maybe take a break for a while because I'm getting married in 6 months' time. No. I actually have decided to take out my professional license. So for 2025, and you're hearing it here first, I'm going to be racing
We
as,
love an exclusive.
yeah, I will be racing as a professional triathlete because that's what motivates me. Like, yes, second in the world is amazing, but how fast can I go? And I'm not going to get faster if I am one of the fastest in my category. That's not going to push me to get faster. I want to race the best in the world. And the only way to race the best of the best is to go professional. So super excited, but that is the plan.
So you'll be cancelling the wedding because there'll be a race on that day. That's what I see happening in 2025.
Oh, funny story. I've already told everyone I'm not going to Cannes because it's too close to the wedding. I think Cannes is on the race schedule. Don't tell Brandon.
So turning professional. This is one for those who are listening. What does that entail? Obviously, and we'll wrap it up real quick, but you take out a license, you're on the front line with the best of the best in the world, and that's where you just get humbled by those who have been doing this a long time, and you just try and compete. Is it just to see where can I go over the next 4 or 5 years? What can I do? Is that what it entails? Obviously, do you have to qualify with a certain time for a professional license?
Every governing body has its own like set of criteria. And shout out to Calvin in Triathlon Ireland. Like he was amazing last week helping me sort this out and just sent through a list of criteria. So to become a professional, like an Irish professional, you can do it in multiple ways. One of them is time, one of them is position in a world champs. Australia is slightly different. So in Australia, World Champs, Australia is not actually time at all, but it's things like the Asia Pacific Championship that I won. That would have qualified me. So different countries have different criteria. And then once you are a professional, it really like some of these girls are just phenomenal. Like they are obviously the top endurance athletes in our sport, some of the top endurance athletes in the world. So I think it becomes maybe a bit less about position and more about, I just want to see how good I can be. How competitive can I be? And if that just means that I get a fast time and no position, so be it. That is what I am chasing. I'm just trying to be the best version I can be and see how much I can push myself.
No, and look, again, a reminder to everyone, it's been 3 years since you sat on a bike, and now we're talking about a professional license in triathlon. We knew that before recording, but I had to bring people on the story, and I know this episode has gone on a little bit longer, but I think the story deserved time and the background into what a year you've had, into the effort you've put in. It's not a case of you woke up and decided I'm going to be a professional tomorrow. This has been a series of, sure, I'll just do a race and maybe I'll never do another one. And it's been that way for 3 years. And even up until this race, it was kind of like, maybe I'll do this and that'll be the end of it. But I suppose it's amazing to see that drive. It's amazing to see that want to try this out as a professional. Would you consider going more long distance, short distance, or a combination of the two?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate that some people will never have this opportunity. And, it is a lot of hard work. And I'll be forever grateful that I have been able to get this opportunity. And that was a key factor in going for it. Because obviously things step up, in terms of training, I'll keep things similar. That going back to that conversation of it doesn't get easier, you just get better. But I might never get an opportunity. I might never be this fit again. Like, who knows what's going to happen. So when the opportunity presented itself, it just felt right. It just felt like, why not? Like, not everybody gets to this position. So let's just see how it goes. But yeah, going back to that conversation about the full Ironman, like, that's what I want to do. I'm thinking, okay, 70.3 is great. Let's hit this pro thing and let's hit it with full Ironman. Like, let's do Ironman, not half Ironman.
Wow. So it's going to be a big step up, even more training, more time, more endurance, more effort. But let's hope, Rachael, that 2025 is a very, very successful year. We're all very proud of you. It's great to have you part of our podcast. I feel like we found, it's like our version of Bitcoin before it was worth a load of money. We found Rachael when she couldn't cycle bikes. And now Rachael is second in the world in her age category, taking out a professional license and taking on herself in a time trial, I suppose, against the best of the best, and to see what it does. It's so good and so good. Like, we're so grateful to have you on once again. It's great to start the year with a good guest. It's great not to have Seán here. It was much easier.
Well, imagine if Seán was here. Like, I don't even know how long we're going, but apologies to your listeners, but we're probably grateful Seán's not here asking questions. We could still be here in another hour's time.
But Rachael, it's been phenomenal to have you on. And that is it for this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. I've no doubt we will have you on again as we see your 2025 unfold. And for all those interested in Rachael, we'll share her details in the show notes so you can follow and track her career, her Strava, her everything, and try and copy what she has done by all means. Until next week, that's it for me and Rachael and Seán. Take care.
Oh, thank you guys.